What's good? You rocking with your boy TheCzarr, All Rights Reserved. You know the PayPal, the GoFundMe link, and also the Cash App is in the description below. Always check the description for that type of information, as well as more to come today. So next we're going to talk about Dedrick blocking the car. Where's the video that shows the vehicle that they were in blocking the car? Now, from what has been detailed to us, they were in the store of Riva Motorsports prior to Tentacion showing up, and they walked past him, and they allegedly parked across the street in a van. Is there a photo of this van blocking him off, let alone this van driving to the store to pick the items up? Now, they also allege he was with Robert Allen, who vehemently is also claiming innocence. So we have a lot of suspects claiming innocence when that's not the norm of the situation. Usually, if an individual is claiming innocence, they have some sort of reason, they have some sort of motive behind claiming that innocence, but we really don't have any evidence to push these guys to the point where we're like, okay, you're guilty, you did this, you did that, versus any situation of saying, look, it's all speculation, it's all questionable, and circumstantial evidence is going to lead to more issues. So seeing them on video in that vehicle blocking them would be circumstantial to get a warrant to check that vehicle. But also, why haven't they got the warrants to check the vehicles that were listed? Only information we know is them checking Boatwright's grandma's car. Did they get a warrant because that was on video? Also, if that was the case, when they took the rental in, why was there no evidence in the rental? That really makes no sense to me. If this car is just leaving an alleged crime, why was there no direct evidence through the people that were in the car that they began interrogating? And why was there no circumstantial evidence inside the vehicle? That would have just made sense. If I'm just leaving a crime, how could I have disposed of the items unless I disposed of them around the area, or the people who were guilty of the crime were not the ones in the car? That really makes no sense to me. It's almost like a whodunit type of issue once again, and it's repeating itself, and it's repeating itself very naturally. That's my thing. When an investigation happens and the whodunit begins, you're supposed to cover all bases. I'm supposed to rule out people. So then again, how did they rule out the individuals who were bragging about having done it? How did they do that? You see, because remember I told you one of the people in the video was telling the truth when it came out in clout and speculation. You could check that video in the list as well. So if we're looking at clout and speculation and we're seeing different truths being released, one of those people were telling the truth. So why is it just one? I said at least one. So we're saying the people that came out bragging about it, even if they had knowledge of it, that would also involve them to some level, because you knew this was about to go down and you did it or said nothing. How did authorities clear them? Now we got them making videos and different things, and it's sort of like mocking the whole life of them. It's also like putting out that energy to say, look, we could do what we want and we'll never be held accountable for it. So I'm not really getting how people were cleared. The symbols, the synonymous names, it's just all matching together, even stronger than the evidence that authorities have on these men. So why was that not investigated thoroughly? That would be another, let's say, issue that I'm trying to figure out. It's just confusing. If I have people claiming they did something, or saying, look, I did this, or I was involved, and they name their album, it's like you're playing with the public. You're putting it out there in public view, but you're also like standing on it. Let alone, we've seen pictures with Dedrick and some of these individuals. So does that mean Dedrick was involved? The fact he's getting a private investigator, something tells me that he could have been what I claimed he was from the start, a fall guy. That he's literally was being set up to look guilty in a situation, and they knew that he wouldn't speak outwardly, but maybe he's trying to symbolize that he wants someone to figure it out, that he needs someone to figure it out. These would be strong implications of a fall guy. Aside from that, we remember when Robert Allen was arrested, he said, I want to tell the truth. What truths did he want to tell? Because I don't think it's a whodunit truth, because I don't believe he actually knew the setup or who was involved. But at the same time, he had strong mental, let's say, additions to add to the situation to lead it away from him. So if I can lead the evidence away from me, and I may not have the exact evidence that fits into the circumstance, does that still make me guilty? Does that still make him, someone who would be labeled a snitch? Maybe so, but at the same time, if he does not have it, then he does not have it. If he's saying he's not guilty, then he's not guilty. You see, because there's a lot that goes on, not only in the industry, but around different features dealing with the industry. And I believe he was a victim of circumstance, if anything. He was morally a victim of circumstance. And I believe that plays strongly into the method where we'll get to see more about him. We'll get to see more about his character. And we'll also begin to understand how these different factors fit into the fold. I strongly advise that if you do feel you're innocent, that you don't say you're guilty. Because one thing that happens when you get railroaded in interrogation, factors that are put around you to make you seem guilty can be used against you, even if they're claiming that certain things won't happen. And we know that most of these men were interrogated without attorneys present, seeing how late in the game they retained an attorney or someone to help them, whether it's a free lawyer or not. And I also advise them against the free lawyer ideology, because that's only going to lead you into situations you don't want. But in Michael Boatwright's case, I think it benefits, because it's a lawyer that feels he has something to prove. When someone feels like they have something to prove, things get a bit different. The goal changes itself, and the direction becomes a much stronger pace towards innocence. So they have something to prove. So they're looking to show that this is not the case, that this guy may be innocent. But what doesn't look right is the fact that I found evidence in your grandma's car. So literally on your property, I found evidence linking it to the slaughter of an individual we're investigating. Now the plot thickens and it gets a little bit dampened on who you actually are, whether you can be trusted, what's actually true. And that's not what you want. That's what you want to stay far away from. But it seems like he's been drawn back into this scenario, and it just dampens who he is, and it puts a weight on his character altogether. It's, can we trust him? Do we actually believe what he's saying? And does what he's saying hold weight in the court of law? Remember, it's not just anything circumstantial or direct. It has to be tangible if it's circumstantial, and that's how it becomes admissible. So there's many levels to how evidence is accepted, but DNA evidence is almost admissible right away. That's the only problem. If his DNA was found on any of the garments that were linked to the slaughter, it would be admissible right away, unless the lawyer had a good reason for why his DNA was there, because probable cause would be that it was found by investigators in a spot where one of the individuals actually lived, actually were at, actually could have been a part of. That's the only scary part. You can't tell what's admissible truly until you fight it and you try and remove it. And that's what's scary. These guys lawyered up so late. These lawyers are looking at how to prove your innocence, let alone trying to file different forms to prevent evidence from coming to light. And the only way to fight it at this moment would be to make sure their DNA does not get taken, which by Florida law, it should have been taken, being the level of felony that was at stake. Why they didn't, I don't know. But prosecution is obviously looking for it for a reason. And that's where these men really do face harm of their future not being full. And the only way to really get out of it would be to have a lawyer that understands law and finds different factors not credible in the court of law. So they'd have to count on their lawyers hand and foot right now, especially the two individuals who were on a manhunt, because you can't run then try and stand, because it's always going to come back to the point that they think you allegedly run. But there's still always reasons to block that type of stuff out. There's always a reason to prevent things. But it's all up to whether you have a lawyer that's knowledgeable enough to help you build a situation to avoid being caught up in the mix. And that's my problem. Do you really, guys, really think that Dedrick hiring a private investigator shows he may have been innocent? And do we really believe that Dedrick was involved somehow because of his affiliations with different people? I have some other specific ones that are going to come out and kind of go through the details on how it works. Today, I plan to take a quick look at Riva Motorsports, but do they have footage of the vehicle Dedrick was in blocking Tentacion to go with the story? Because where we see his car was Riva Motorsports gate, which if he was blocked on both sides, are they talking left or right or front and back? How was he blocked? Because if his car is hanging out the gate, a gate shutting would have been, let's say, enough to block him efficiently. So why would we need vehicles to block him in? It really doesn't make sense to me. I'm really not understanding how the narrative's building. They have a lot of gaps in their understanding, and we're just looking at the evidence, how it unfolds. And I get how they say video is important and some video shouldn't be released, but this is video that could be released because it would definitely show that innocence could be in question if we see a vehicle and suspects in the vehicle. If they truly had this, what would it harm to release? Let me know in the comments below. What would it harm to release? And do you believe, as Commenter Nation, that he's truly guilty of this crime? Did he actually do what they're saying he did? Or is his private investigator a symbol to us that he wasn't really involved? He may have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. What are your thoughts? You know how I rock. All rights reserved.